Hey family, this is Tracy K. Lewis, aka Trey, and welcome to Dwell According Knowledge, the talk show. And our topic for today, ladies, is why women need to ease up on men. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, about the reason, kind of like why. I mean, it could go back and forth. It could go with women. It could go with men, as well. We just gotta kind of like, uh, we gotta kind of like try and take a look at, some of the reasons why, people act the way that they do. And we have to make sure that, we're being accommodating and we're being compassionate and that we're being, uh, you know, empathetic, not sympathetic, but empathetic towards, when you find out something, about, people, not just men and women, but just people in general. So I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this because part of my story is pretty much what's happening, as I wrote my notes here, and I wrote it in kind of like a story, kind of thing. And if you ever get a chance to read my book, I have my book out there, and it's called "You're Not Your Past: Five Keys to Freedom from the Wreckage of Your Past." And in it, it talks about, and I'm going to get to I'm going to get to it when we go into this as well. But it talks about how your past can really put you in a space to where you don't feel like you deserve certain things. You know what I mean? So let me read this. I'm gonna read this story to you, and then you can kind of put yourself in you can put yourself in that place as well, because it may be something that you've done yourself. Okay? All right. Listen. This isn't about men that hurt on purpose, men that rape, men that abandon their families. This is about the average Joe, the guy that loved his mama, tries his best, and is still mystified by those of us that are female. Okay? Now, I hear women ask this question all the time, and they ask it openly in singles ministries and all of the things, all of the seminars and things that I've already, that I've done and I've covered, and women always asking me, right after the end of it, they always come and they always say, "What's wrong with men?" You know what I mean? Why can't they shoot straight? You know what I mean? What's the problem with their communicating? Why is it that they find it so hard to communicate? Now, women, I know women complain that men are shut down in one breath and complain that they're too emotional the next. Okay? The truth is, the truth is that men are striving for a balance in a world where the rules of masculinity just keep right on changing. Okay? Now, there's still many guarded and wounded hearts out there. The operative word in this thing is wounded. Okay? Both men and women have been wounded deeply, but men still struggle to make sense of women, while women experience men as closed off and shut down. Okay? Now, the reality is a man's heart is as vulnerable as a woman's, but the rules for men are laid out differently from the very beginning. And when you talk about being wounded, that wound can stretch all the way back to where he was young. And I mean like really young. So let me keep reading here. Like many women, men are wounded early. The difference: men are often forced to buck up and stuff their emotions rather than express them. Think about it. Peers usually ostracize a crying boy over the age of 7. See, my wound happened at 7 years old. And before I even got up to 7 years old, my biggest wound happened at 7 years old. But in between all of that, if I got a scratch on my head, a bump, a scratch on my knee, a bump on my head, my dad would, look, if I came in the house crying, my dad would be like, "Listen, shut up, or I'll give you something to cry for." So of course I'm, You know, and I got, and then just go back outside. Like that. If I was in a fight and was getting beat up, you better win, or I'm going to lay the belt to you. So I get my butt beat up, and that's one beat. And then when I get in the house, I get another one. But the whole time, I'm being, told to stuff that, keep that down, be a man like from 7 years old and beyond. Okay, so often juggling his ever-changing role with mom, he naturally starts to bond with dad, and old rules such as buck up, boys don't cry, and get over it. This is what I'm telling you, from prior generations are passed on once again. Now, as the years go by, a young boy's hearts become more and more protected. Okay, and with each new wound, no real outlet for emotions are available to him. Okay? On the other hand, a great many women, regardless of their dysfunctional childhood, grow up and find comfort through female friendships. But for men, it's considered, where ladies, it's considered normal to cry and vent, express emotion, and fall apart if necessary. But men aren't naturally encouraged to release the pain, and express hurt. So to survive, they add armor to their hearts, and stand guarded against further pain. That means normally, if some woman comes through and trying to get through that armor, it's going to be a very, very tough battle. Okay. Now, we find it comfort in our female friendships. Women find it comfortable in their female friendships, but many men say their only source of physical comfort is the ex. Okay. But I often wonder, women often wonder, do men reach across the bed for X when sometimes they're just seeking solace? You know what I mean? But most of the women that I know, they all agree that witnesses an empowered man opening his heart despite his wounding and putting it all out there in a vulnerable way is sexy, but not easy. Okay, so you may find a man that's that's gone through some hurt, that's gone through some pain, that's gone through some drama, that's gone through some trauma, and he's accepted what he's got. Because, like, again, in my book, I go through the 5 keys to get through that wreckage. And you can open up your heart, you can open up your mind, you can open up yourself, to people when they come into your life. Because I never thought I was deserving of love. I never thought I was, and it wasn't until I went through a whole slew of stuff, and I got myself to a point where I had to understand why I went through the stuff that I went through. Okay, now most men have been shamed in the past for asking for what they want. They've been shamed for wanting X. They've been shamed for feeling attraction, and shamed for their vulnerability. Wow, it's an uneasy playing field out there, actually a minefield when you think about it. Now take a woman previously wounded by an aggressive man and have her approached by a man openly asking for what he wants, and y'all may just bolt. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, here comes a good man, but you've been dealing with a bad man all the time. You may not even know how to handle it. Matter of fact, I know a couple women that, did that too. Because I used to be a bad man, and now being a good man, you're so used to, the bad stuff that when a good stuff come along, you don't know what to do with it. Okay? Now, makes you realize that the next woman he approaches may experience him as a man that dances around what he really wants, now afraid to ask openly. You get that? Wow. What a conundrum. Ain't that something? Yeah, now women are wounded and afraid to trust. Men are wounded and afraid to open. Let me say that again. Women are wounded and afraid to trust. Men are wounded and afraid to open up. I want you to get that piece. Get that, okay? Now, what can women do? What is it that you guys can do? The first thing I'm going to say is just be patient. Okay, that is the number one thing that I'm going to ask you to do, and that, because you as women can be patient when men talk with you. Give us time and space to express ourselves and understand that we don't communicate like your female friends. Okay, we just don't. You bandering with your girlfriends and talking, over one another is common behavior when y'all gather together. But a man sharing is a different process. We don't jump from subject to subject. It's not that we don't want to share with you. It's often that when you try to jump trying to jump in and interrupt the flow of what we're talking about. So normally when we're in one flow, we'll kind of lead you into knowing what the next subject is and stuff like that. So we don't want you to jump in there and start talking and jumping all over the place, because we'll get like, next thing you know, we don't want to talk no more. Okay? All right, listen. Y'all can count to 10 in your heads when we stop talking, and give us a chance to speak again, because pretty much 9 out of 10 times we will, because we're just looking for the next thing to say. And we want to make sure that we're saying the right things and not just blurting out and stuff like that. Okay? And again, be very, very patient and compassionate and empathetic, about all of the things that, once you start finding out who he is, that's where a lot of questions come in. That's why you want to ask about the childhood. You want to ask about the adolescence. You want to ask about the young adult. You want questions coming from a myriad of places in his life, so you can find out, hey, are you wounded or not? The Bible speaks about, a wounded spirit who can bear, so these are the things that you want to do. Okay. Now, understand that a closed down reaction during a fight is most likely embarrassment and pain as men realize that we've disappointed you. Okay. And then take a step back and not take the lack of immediate communications that anger. Instead, take a time out. That means if anything, if some drama start happening, don't take it personal. Just take a step back. Okay? Now, most importantly, remember that your man is not going to be like your female friends. Changing us is not the goal. Okay? Even if you successfully change us, chances are you wouldn't be attracted to us anymore. Okay? All right, listen. Now, by learning to decipher what appears to be shut down in angry behavior as deep wounding, you can find the patience needed to speak a different language with the man, with your man, with the man that you love. Okay. Now, treating your man as you do your female friends is like walking into it could be anything, like a French pastry shop, ordering something in Cantonese, and getting angry when you're not understood. You get it? You're in a Cantonese. You're in a French restaurant speaking a different language. Okay. And it requires a different language to show your love, period. You're going to have to learn how to speak French. You understand? You're going to have to learn how to speak your man's language. All right? This is Trey, and I hope you all got something from that, and I'll see you in the next video.